Hello, welcome to the LaRouche PAC Weekly Report for May the 30th, 2012. I'm John Hofel, and joining me in the studio today are Matthew Ogden of LaRouche PAC TV, Jason Ross of The Basement, and Lyndon LaRouche.
Take that and look at the problems of thinking in terms of money. Because there's obviously our financial system right now is disintegrating as we speak, but there are some people who are seeking for a different monetary system to replace it. Some of them even call it a credit system without knowing what the word means, where they say it's a different relationship of money. But the problems we've discussed with using money in an economy, the foolishness of even the term monetary economics, of the fact that money isn't able to distinguish this sort of specific new liveliness that's embodied in a new physical principle. Money isn't able to understand qualitatively the introduction of fire or agriculture or nuclear power or space technology. That the inability of money to understand that is the same thing as what you get with trying to make a geometry based on things as opposed to principles. So under a credit system, we're not going to have a final credit system. It's not possible to lay out, what rates of interest should be, how the banking sector should work, and everything in a way that will be everlastingly eternal, because it's always based on what your specific intentions are. Right now, NWAPA and space, for example, space defense and Mars, these are goals that are going to change in the future as we develop. So it reminds me of this, I don't remember where in the Republic it comes up, but at a certain point in the Republic by Plato, everybody's discussing the ideal republic, and they start thinking about, okay, well, how are we going to make sure that this republic continues into the future? How are we going to lay down, a basis for future generations to maintain this republic that we're creating? And they realize that no set of specific rules will work, both because people in the future aren't going to know why would those be good rules. And they end up coming to the conclusion that their process of deliberation is itself the only enduring foundation for an ideal republic. That future generations have to rediscover what the principle of the future is and improve upon it. So I think that's something that people, it gets scary to think about with the credit system, is that there is no outside non-human system that we're going to create that'll then govern economy. Economy is a lively thing. It's a human thing. And human intention has to be there all along the way, guiding it.
The question then is what is the limit of mankind in terms of development of the universe, changing the universe, changing the rules, extending the rules? Well, we have the question of matter, antimatter conceptions, which is the so-called boundary condition today of what we think the physics boundary condition is, in terms of speed of this, speed of that, speed of that. But then we say that's impossible. And we just haven't created it yet. When we think about what we have to do with galactic systems, for example, the things happen there that we're not conceiving of doing from Earth. But there's a part of the universe in which things are happening which don't fit the matter-antimatter convention. When you start to think about the time factor, well, we've blown up the time factor totally with some nuclear fusion. But
yeah.
The clocks don't mean anything in the same way anymore.
Right.
And when we get to matter, antimatter, and we look at the universe, we look at matter, antimatter, we just stare at it and see that's a boundary condition. Hey, we're locked here forever. We're in a dungeon. Well, it's a self-created dungeon. You didn't get the key yet to get out of it. Because obviously when you look at the cosmic system as a whole, you see ratios of time action and so forth there, and bounding conditions there, which go way beyond matter, antimatter as it's simply defined. Matter, antimatter is actually a general principle of many kinds of matter, antimatter, many qualitative stages of development, matter, antimatter. We are already yearning for that. Mm-hmm. Once we start thinking about the limits of our universe as we know it, about the solar system, then we go beyond the solar system and we go into the galaxy, and we sit there and we look at our charts and we find out how many million years do we go back in this process? How is this system put together? How do these changes organized went together? So we have with matter, antimatter, we have a definition of an assumed limit based on the assumed assumptions of experiment that you have now. But we are now getting into the matter-antimatter function much more familiarly as something which does extend further, and we know that this is cognizable by the mind of man.
Mm-hmm.
And that fact, it tells us that's where we're going to go.
Yeah, the sense of finality is more of sort of a psychological quirk than anything you get from actual science. I mean, people have, in the past at all sorts of times have said we're basically done. You know, what we've got right now, we can't imagine anything beyond it. Well, of course not if you're just looking in the system of what you know right now. But, you know, it's through the cracks that you're mentioning with in astrophysics right now, things like this. There's plenty to discover that's out there, and it's just an intention to go ahead and do it. I mean, we could have had fusion energy by now. If there was an intention to make it happen,
Well, if you have the intention,
there's a political will
to find the final answer to all questions. That's a very barbarian concept of a universe.
Sounds like an indecent desire.
It is intrinsically very indecent.
And I mean, I do think that's the key. As you mentioned, we're sitting here right now in the midst of a breakdown crisis, which, nobody who calls himself a professional economic forecaster saw it coming, except for one. And the question is, how are you going to be able to develop the ability to think like Lyndon LaRouche and carry this civilization out of the fallacies that were embedded in how we reached this point right now?
You have to adopt that as a question. It's that simple.
Right.
It's a fungible question.
And it's very possible. The barrier standing between us and that is this refusal to defy the slavery of trust and sense experience.
Yep.
It's internal.
Yep.